This is our news, the weekend edition, and on the broadcast tonight, big changes to the Progressive Liberal Party's constitution. Plus, the health minister explains the process to import marijuana. And we look at the importance of men getting their annual physicals.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Topping the news, major reform is underway within the country's oldest political institution, the Progressive Liberal Party. The PLP has undertaken a very comprehensive review of its outdated constitution to reflect and meet modern expectations. During a special one-day convention on Saturday, the Constitutional Committee revealed the proposed changes to party members.
This is the beginning of really a transition into a reformed party. The Constitution is essentially a new document.
And one which Chairman of the Constitutional Committee, Reynard Rigby, believes will aid in rebranding the organization ahead of the 2022 general election. The party has been plagued with scandals and controversy, which undoubtedly played a major factor in the PLP's crushing defeat at the polls. But for the first time, the party is implementing a code of conduct for its members.
It deals with and addresses how party members should deal with each other, members of the public, finance reform, issues of how a cabinet minister ought to conduct the business and affairs of his portfolio in relation to donations and fundraising activities in these constituencies. And it's really to ensure that there's accountability, transparency, and honesty in the public profile of our members.
Rigby touted the Code of Conduct as perhaps the most comprehensive approach to campaign finance reform in a political party. The party is also expanding its base to be more inclusive, allowing for more people to join. There will also be a confirmed seat at the table for young people and women on all of the party's standing committees. There has been criticism over the manner in which the party chooses its candidates, but Rigby says that will change.
For persons who wish to be candidates for the party, they'll have to be elected or selected by the majority of the members of the party in a constituency. That decision is then ratified by the National General Council, which is the highest body of the party outside of the National General Convention. And so we are trying to ensure that there's democracy within all realms of the party, even from joining to voting at a convention and the selection of the candidate.
Another major change is the way in which stalwart councillors will be appointed. It was a major gripe of former PLP Cabinet Minister Alfred Says, who took issue with the appointment of hundreds of stalwart councillors by the party's then leader, Perry Christie, only days before the party's national convention in January of 2017.
What you will now have is, based on the feedback from this convention, the majority of the voters and members wanted a system where the party identified a specified amount of stalwarts to be appointed per year. And the National General Council will exercise that power to ensure that there's balance in the party. And so at all times in the appointment of new stalwarts, the council will have to ensure that there's a balancing exercise being carried out from delegates from the constituency levels and delegates at the stalwart council level.
There were further recommendations made at Saturday's convention, which Rigby says the committee will now review and determine how to factor in. Once that's complete, the proposed changes will then be brought to the party again. Police investigating the circumstances surrounding a traffic accident that's left a female dead. It was around 10 last night when the female victim was attempting to walk across Prince Charles Drive in the area of the Wok restaurant when she was reportedly struck by two vehicles. The two vehicles involved were a 2011 Buick Regal, which was traveling in the eastbound lane, and a black Nissan Cube, which was traveling in the westbound lane. Now, the victim was transported to hospital, but she later succumbed to her injuries. As for both drivers, well, they remained on the scene and are assisting police in their investigations. In other news, any application to import marijuana under the provisions of the Dangerous Drugs Act will be considered on its merits and not be arbitrarily denied. That's according to Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands, who made the comments as the marijuana debate heats up. Our Jasmine Brown reports.
The health minister explained that since taking up the post more than a year ago, he has yet to see an application made for the importation of marijuana or marijuana byproducts.
There have been no applications, certainly in the time that I've been minister, for marijuana, CBD, or any of the components of cannabis sativa.
Despite that fact, Sands, who has responsibility for dangerous drugs and poisons, says if an application is made in the future, it will be duly considered.
If somebody were to now place an application, it would be considered on its merits, and there would be no reason for arbitrary denial of that application.
Sands says it's all possible based on the Dangerous Drugs Act that provides an opportunity to request imports for a specific purpose. It further allows a qualified person with special authority of the minister to cultivate, trade in, import, and bring into the Bahamas marijuana for medical or scientific purposes.
The Dangerous Drugs Act allows for the license for importation of virtually any medication. That includes marijuana, it includes cocaine, it includes heroin, it includes methadone, it includes a lot of medications that are not typically used and which in general circulation would be considered a dangerous drug.
Meantime, the minister's administration is in the process of populating the Marijuana Committee, which will be tasked with exploring whether marijuana ought to be decriminalized. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announced the move after the Regional Marijuana Commission, which presented its report to CARICOM on the social, economic, health, and legal issues surrounding marijuana in the region, forwarded the view that in a regulated framework, marijuana should be treated similarly to tobacco and alcohol. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks a lot, Jasmine. Well, Attorney General Carl Bethel is slamming critics who claim he has overstepped his boundaries when it comes to the operation of the Independent Director of Public Prosecutions.
I don't tell people how to do their jobs, but I do ask them to do it if it comes to me. I'm not the person to do their job. I just pass on information as I get it to the responsible officer.
In June, Garvin Gaskin became the first constitutionally appointed Independent Director of Public Prosecutions in the Bahamas. Gaskin has had a long-standing career as a public prosecutor in the Office of the Attorney General. Parliament passed the Constitution Amendment Bill 2017 last November, paving the way for the new office and fulfilling a Free National Movement campaign promise to remove certain powers from the Attorney General and transfer them to an independent public prosecutor.
We have fortified the independence of that office with a constitutional amendment. It was always independent, and I've always treated it as such, both prior to the passage of the constitutional amendment bill and also when I was first Attorney General, way back then. You always treated the independent office as an independent office, and nobody gave directions without legal merit on any matter. The fact is, I only ask people to do their jobs.
Bethel's comments came after he was criticized by Progressive Liberal Party Chairman Fred Mitchell, who expressed shock over the government's decision to refer a simple social media political war to the Director of Public Prosecutions. Mitchell released a press statement that questioned the use of the state apparatus to investigate some phantom alleged criminal behavior and suggested there was an agenda to intimidate PLP supporters. He condemned the move as shameful and nakedly political, adding that the party expected to see the specific directions given by Attorney General Carl Bethel gazetted as required by law. Bethel disagreed.
This was not and nor did my words state that this was any kind of referral or direction from me. Something came across my phone, I pass it on. Yesterday, something came across my desk, I did the same thing. Okay?
Well, this story is for the men. When was the last time you saw your doctor? Well, one lifestyle medicine physician thinks it's about time you make an appointment. Our Kyle Joaquin tells us more.
It's been said, men don't like going to the doctor.
There are lots of men in this country walking around with hypertension, walking around with diabetes and other health issues, and because they feel fine, they're not in pain, they don't think they need to come to the doctor. The women come, and oftentimes when the men come, it's the women who drag them.
President of Bahamas Wellness Clinic, Dr. Arlington Lightbourne, who is a lifestyle medicine physician, said while it can be uncomfortable, men should make it a habit to have more physicals.
A thorough physical examination by their doctor at least once a year over the age of 30. Each decade, I say add another visit. So at 40, at least twice a year. At 50, at least 3 times a year. At 60 and over, at least 4 times a year.
According to Dr. Lightbourne, if more men visited the doctor more often, a lot of illnesses could be detected and treated far earlier.
For most of us, if we feel okay, we think we're fine. And for most of us, if we have no pain, then there's no problem. And this is why I always say pain is in many cases a blessing, because had it not been for pain, most of us would not come to the doctor. And oftentimes, unfortunately, that is when it's too late. In many instances, particularly cancers.
And with prostate cancer being one of the leading causes of death in men, this physician says it's never too early to begin checking.
You don't want to know that you have cancer when you start feeling pain. That's a likely very late stage cancer, and cancer that can be prevented. Prostate cancer, as we know, which is almost 100% curable if caught early, but almost 100% fatal if caught late.
So he says the key to better health for men is simple: see your doctor regularly.
But the reality is, even the pediatricians are urging for boys 12, 13, 14 years old to come in for physical. So there's no point in which it's okay not to get a physical. You should be seen by a physician every year, your entire life.
For Our News Weekend, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
All right, thanks a lot, Kyle. Well, the majority of murder victims in the Bahamas are young men. But a new study has found that a growing number of young girls are showing signs of post-traumatic stress disorder due to the current social climate. But what does that mean for generations to come?
What we found out is that about 87% of the adolescents currently in our program suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, that's PTSD. It's only a matter of time before, like Dr. Allen explained, before they act out that hurt. So if they're scoring and they're saying on their test, hey, I've been hurt, I'm angry because of the trauma or the hurt I've experienced, it's only a matter of time, unless there's an intervention like the Family Court-Ordered Program.
Director of Research for the Family Program, Bethel, says a trauma study examined the progress of adolescents in court-ordered therapy. The study used a questionnaire to measure adverse childhood experiences before the age of 18, which have been found to have an effect on children as they grow older.
Our study actually showed that our young ladies are scoring the highest in PTSD. On the PTSD score, the young ladies are scoring the highest. What that does is it measures how many adverse childhood experiences you had from the age of 18 or younger, and 37% of our adolescents scored 4 or higher. So as Dr. Allen explained with the Evil Violence Tunnel, instead of asking, well, what's wrong with you or why are you doing these things now, you have to go back and trace the childhood and ask what happened to them as a child, because they had to have been hurt somehow.
But there is some good news. Bethel says a follow-up study of 49 adolescents who have gone through the therapy with the family looks promising.
Since release from our program, 87% of them said they no longer have trouble with the law. About half of them said they found employment. 79% said they now make better decisions. They have better anger management skills. 79% said they manage their emotions better. And I think about 37% admitted that they still abuse substances, which is, at least they're admitting it. And they said that they, use marijuana, BD, and cocaine as their drug of choice. So we still have some room for improvement, but I think we're doing okay.
But the length of therapy depends on court orders, probation officers, and recommendations from school guidance counselors. And we will take our first break here, but still ahead tonight, government gives an update on the future of blockchain technology in the country, and more stringent measures from civil aviation to clamp down on hackers. That's coming up when our news returns.